Welcome to Spark 101 Voices, where we have stimulating conversations around STEM learning and STEM earning. This episode is the second half of our conversation with Maimah Karmo. Maimah is the founder and CEO of the Tigerlily Foundation and a 10-year survivor of breast cancer. She is also an author and speaker. Maimah has appeared on various media outlets from Oprah to the 17 magazine. She is regularly called upon to speak at panels on Capitol Hill as a leader in the world of breast health. In this episode, we will learn how Maimah's life changed with a diagnosis of breast cancer and what drove her to become the CEO, publisher, political figure, and unicorn she is today.
That was one of the most defining moments of my life. I remember feeling the lump in my breast and going, oh my God. My mother and I had a conversation when I was 13 years old when she explained about breast examinations and why they were important. And I had no idea why they were important. And she said, do your breast exams every month because your body would change as you get older. And as your body's changing, you should know that things can happen. And I'm like what? Well, like little lumps and other things. And I'm like, well, I have a lump that I can't stand right now. It's called a breast. I don't want that anyway. But I'm making a joke. But either way, when I felt the lump, I found it because I've been doing my breast exams since I was 13 years old. So I was doing my exams for many, many years. I knew enough about my body to know that it wasn't normal. My mother had taught me the importance of being my best advocate. So I went to see my doctor. And because I grew up with doctors around me in the hospital, my mom's career, there wasn't a fear of doctors. So my doctor was like my friend. And she said, what do you think we should do about this? And I'm not comfortable with it if you're not. And I said, can I get a mammogram? And she's like, well, you're really young, but I trust you, so I'll write a script for you to get a mammogram. Mammograms is a tool to detect tumors. And so I got it, and she said, I'll refer you to a surgeon. And the surgeon, when I went to see her, told me that I was too young to have breast cancer, that the mammogram had come back clean, and so I had, in fact, no evidence of cancer, and I should go home, live my life, and come back when I was much older. She's like, come back. She's like, you're 31 years old now. I was 31, 32. Come back when you're close to 40, because that was the age at which back in the day when you should be looking for doing breast screening at that age. And I was only 31 years old, so I was too young to, I was way younger than the age of which people got breast cancer on average. And so I said to her, I can't wait that long. And she said, well, then come back in 6 months to a year. And I said, I can't wait that long. The lump was actually growing. I could feel it getting bigger. And so I pushed her. I kept saying to her, I want a biopsy. A biopsy is a kind of a surgery that they can extract a bit of the tumor and study and see if it's in fact cancerous. Because I knew in my heart that the technology that would detect my breast cancer at the time wasn't yet developed. I just knew it wasn't. And I told her, I said, the mammogram is wrong. It's the wrong. She goes, it's the best. This is the best that we have. This test is not wrong. And I said, the tool that's going to detect cancer, like the cancer I have and this kind of breast I have, has not yet been innovated. So I don't trust it. And so she was mad at me. And I said, I don't care if you're mad at me or not, but I'm not leaving you alone until I get this test done. So I got a biopsy eventually. And it came back that I had stage 2B triple negative breast cancer. The tumor had doubled in size in 6 months of me begging for screening. So if I waited until I was 40, I wouldn't have lived that long. I also learned that the kind of breast cancer I had, which is called triple negative breast cancer, up until now has no first line of treatment. In the past month and a half, they've created a new drug that treats patients actually who are triple negative patients who are metastatic, which means the cancer is spread and it treats the metastases, but there's no first line drug that treats patients who are diagnosed, with early stage triple negative breast cancer. So what that meant for me was that there was no way to treat my cancer that was a targeted therapy, and they could throw everything they had at me, meaning surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, but it wouldn't, it would just be like, do you do that? And then, say a prayer and hope you're fine. So, I was at a point in my life, to be honest, where I the part of me that had the glasses on, the rose colored glasses, were like, okay, how do I see my way through this, right? Because I don't know what cancer is. I don't know how I got in my body. I don't know how I put it there. What did I miss? What did I do wrong? All I knew is that people die from cancer. I didn't know anything more than that. They were throwing words at me like receptors, Elson scores, radiation oncologists, surgical oncologists. It was just all these terms and treatments and measurements and MUGA scans, and it was overwhelming to me to hear these words. And I was like, I just kind of shut down. So my mom and I went to many of my appointments together. I just couldn't comprehend having cancer. My daughter was 3 years old, and I couldn't imagine leaving her at that age. And I was like, I escaped 3 wars, being held at gunpoint, being hit by lightning, doing all these good things in the world, like to die of cancer at this age. So after an initial period of being like really like overwhelmed, depressed, and not knowing what to do, I ended up having surgery, beginning chemotherapy. And chemotherapy is not for the faint of heart. It's just like you think that you can soar over worlds and conquer nations, and then it hits you, and it's like, whoa, like because it hits it's killing the bad cells, but it kills the good cells too. So you're really tired, you're nauseated, you have diarrhea, you can barely walk sometimes. Like everyone has a different experience, but mine was not pleasant. My the port that they put in your body to which they administer the chemotherapy, mine ruptured twice. So I could have died because the port literally like came open. But anyway, so laying in bed one day after like this, going through this experience of chemotherapy, I lost my hair. A lot of my friends didn't understand that I was like, they would come visit, but they would leave. But when you have a body that's like sick and you think it is trying to kill you, like it's terrifying. And I didn't have anybody my age to talk to. I didn't have any support services. I didn't know what to do. My daughter was 3. I had to explain cancer to her at 3 years old. And in my culture and within our community, Black community, people didn't discuss cancer that much. So like I literally had like nowhere to turn, and I felt very lost. And I felt very, very, even talking about it now makes me, I get teary. My brothers loved me so much, but they were afraid. So some of them came by sometimes. Some of them didn't come by as much because they couldn't bear to think that I wouldn't, maybe one day wouldn't be here. And so it was a lot of not understanding what's happening. Like it manifests, she makes things happen. And, it's like my one friend said to me, like it was having the quarterback, it was like having the quarterback go down and waiting to see if they're going to get back up. And so there's this period of like this lull. Like, when you watch a movie and the quarterback gets knocked down, and you're like, come on, get up, get up, get up. And they just, in their mind, it's like the slow motion. It's kind of how I felt like I was in this place of like not knowing what was going to happen. And then, I was like, one day I got in the shower and I was just like, I'm just so done, God. I'm just exhausted. And had 2 chemo rounds, and I was just literally, it beat me. It's like being in watching Rocky Balboa, the first one, when like he gets knocked on part 2 when Dolph Lundgren like boxes him down, and he's like, I was just so done. I'm like on my knees in a fetal position, crying, bawled, and my mom pulled me out of the shower, and she's like, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do with this? Like, are you gonna just kind of like give up? And you have to push, you have to try, you have to, because I didn't have any appetite. I was depressed, and it was just, the world was not what it was now with support systems and Facebook groups. It was just all these things didn't exist yet. And so I just got in bed and I was like, God, if you exist, I want you to give me some kind of inkling, give me some kind of sign that you are God, that you are there. And if I feel that, then I'll give my life to you in service. And so I went to bed that night, really like mad at God. I said a few really bad words. And I went to bed that night, and I got up in the morning and I felt like a different person. And I'm sharing that because, and I always get really emotional when I share that, because there are times in your life when you feel so lost and you feel so scared and you feel so alone and you don't know what's going to happen. And then there's something that comes into your space and makes you want to go forward again. Sorry to get so emotional, but like for me, that was that. Like, I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can move forward. And then I'm like, that means God does exist. That means I have to keep my promise. And I'm sharing all that is because we all hear these stories, we watch these videos, and the person is, they fall down and become a hero in like, 2 seconds or half an hour or an hour or a 2 hour movie. That's not how it works. When you want to be a hero in your life and for other people, it's not an easy journey. I made a promise I had to keep, but like, I didn't know what God wanted me to do, so I had to listen. I had to follow my gut, and my gut said to share my story, because how many other young girls were out there whose moms didn't discuss breast cancer with them or doing their breast exams early? Um, how many girls didn't follow their mom's advice if they were talking with them? How many healthcare providers would see a patient who was younger, who was my age or younger, and say, you can't have cancer, come back in 6 months to a year when you're 40? How many people would get a screening, like a mammogram, that would say you have no evidence of cancer and believe the test and die? And then how many people were going to surgeons who were saying to them, you know what, you're wrong, come back when. So I just kind of sat there and thought, I need to discuss my story. And what do I call this thing? And, because cancer had been so scary for me getting diagnosed, I wanted to create something that was going to give people hope and the idea that they could transform their lives during the journey, whatever happened. So I call it a Tigerlily Foundation. And Tigerlily stands for, our motto is about, it's beauty, strength, and transformation. And then because I think there's a way to find beauty in everything you do, and use and leverage your strength, and to be transformed through your journey, whatever that challenge is. How do you make the challenge into a catalyst for growth? And so when I began the foundation, it was just kind of a blog. It was just one blog, my story, and like people were like, when you come speak at my church, or I'm like, well, no, I don't do that. I don't speak anywhere. And you come to my health group, my health fair, or I was like, no, I don't do that either. But then I was like, okay, I'll go. And then the TV stations called, and over time, it grew, and I was working full time. My daughter was getting older, and this thing began to blossom. And then one day, I got a call from Essence Magazine to do a spot on me, and I'm like, oh my God. And I was flying on the plane to go, to get to New York. I remember my mom had gotten a woman to pray with me when I was sick, and she said to me, you have to believe it's something bigger than this cancer. You have to believe that whatever happens in your life, that you and what you create in this time can change millions of people's lives. So even though this is about you, it's not really just about only you. How will you use your journey for the betterment of the world? And I was about to start doing just that. So I did the Essence piece, and then the Essence, Robin Roberts, who was the host of Good Morning America, I think she still is one of the hosts. She got diagnosed the same time frame, and she saw the article and had me go on GMA. And then I think Oprah saw that, and then I got a call to go on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and now, and so then that's kind of how we started. But it was really like, and I asked Oprah, why am I here? So I was sitting with, it was myself, Christina Applegate, and there was Nancy Brinker, who was the founder of Susan G. Komen, which was, it still is one of the largest global breast cancer organizations. And I was still like, nobody knew who I was. And she's like, you have something that's so magical and beautiful, and you don't even know who you are yet. But I can see that. Write a book and just go and live. And so I wrote a book that became an Amazon bestseller, and then began speaking and really moving to my power. And Tigerlily's grown. First focus was to help women under the age of 40 understand their risk factors, and to help them to change how they thought. I dreamed big, so I was thinking of how do I change healthcare systems, and how do I change all of the things I mentioned. So I ended up going to a meeting. The meeting was actually quite coincidence, like God made me go there. I met a congresswoman named Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and Debbie actually was, she's, very powerful, well-known congresswoman, and she asked to meet with me. And so I gave her my 5-10-year plan. I had like 2 plans, whatever. The plan that I gave her became the draft of the Breast Cancer Early Act, which was the first law passed for young women. And the CDC worked with us to implement that. We got funding. And so the things that were barriers when I was first diagnosed became like, there was this nationwide campaign. Many of them that were have been launched over the past 10 years to change those barriers. And the cool thing is, even as we're talking now, I was never thinking about STEM. But what we were doing is changing systemic, scientific, technology, educational, mathematical, and all kinds of other, ethnic, racial, financial barriers. I then worked on legislation around getting women who are younger access to screening through the PALS law that got passed. And then we worked to change how people viewed women who are metastatic, women who means their cancer is spread. So, and then now we're working on a lot around diversity and inclusion. We've launched the Inclusion Pledge, which is now viral. And it's a pledge that says that it literally makes organizations in every system that touches Black women and their health accountable to make change that will inform and propel outcomes to become better for Black women. Right now, Black women have a 40% higher rate of breast cancer mortality, and 37% have recurrences from breast cancer under the age of 40. So if you're a Black woman, your chance of dying of breast cancer is 40% higher than your white counterpart. And if you're under 40, that chance is even close to 40% of having a recurrence, because you're a younger woman. So what I see myself now looking back is that where there's an injustice, I've been propelled to go and figure out how to solve the problem and fight it. So I feel like a firefighter or a justice leader or something, a justice writer, whatever you want to call it. So so it's just been an interesting journey. And now we're working with different companies and drug companies and technology companies and school systems to change how we engage young Black African American people of color school systems and tech systems, and how we change different systems to ensure that we have health equity for Black women and we save lives. And the cool thing is that those systems support other disease states, other cancers, and other health inequities. So what we're doing is kind of like becoming a boilerplate for other people to start looking at ways that they think about Black people and talk about Black people and use Black terminology, like just blacklisting, like just things like the word, how we just use certain words and think they're normal, but the connotation is that Black is bad. And we're all used to that because it's how it's always been. So it's really cool to have been a little girl from Liberia, coming here on a plane at 15 years old, and now working with leaders in the world in many ways of innovation in tech, science, and education. And we're now training students and young women in underserved communities to also become leaders in their communities where they live and work and play and pray. So I'm really honored to be on this podcast. I talked for an hour. Can't believe I just did that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the educational programs that Tigerlily runs?
Tigerlily is off the chain. We have so we have some really cool programs. So the first program we created was called the Hope Bag program, and that program was created because when I began treatment, I dreaded chemotherapy. I would get sick. I would get really weak. I would throw up, and so it became a place for me of dread and a source of great displeasure. So my friend would bring me, and as chemo progresses, your body is harder and harder hit. So she'd bring me little bags with treats, like, cute little blanket or something like little cards, like hope cards or something, a nice hat or a beanie or something like that, or socks. So it kind of like she'd come to my house to get me, and I'd be like, I don't want to go to chemo. I'm tired of this. And she was like, what I got you? I'm like, I don't want to laugh. I don't want to see it. And she's like, look inside. And so it kind of got me, my mood would shift, and she, coaxed me out of it, and I go to treatment. So I thought, my friend was so amazing to bring me those bags and be there for me. And so I wanted to give other women those gifts. So our first program was the Hope Bag program. And I was funding this all myself at first. So I buy women bags and ship them out. Now it's a Hope Box program, and we send women boxes and girls who are newly diagnosed patients all over the world with blankets, scarves, hats, phone chargers, lip balms, and other things like that. We also have a program called Petals, and Petals stands for the flower petal, which is a symbol of the beauty strength transformation model. It's an online. We're relaunching it first it was in person, but we wanted to have women all over the world access the course, and girls. So it's launching in the next couple of weeks as an online program that's self-paced. You can just get on there and log in and take the Petals course and learn about breast health and how to be your best advocate and how to do breast examinations and how to be a peer leader. We have a program that does where we have women who are metastatic and offer programming to them. We also have partnerships with scientific organizations like like all over the world, that where we bring patients and scientists together to understand the importance of technology and importance of innovation around clinical trials. So we do these programs in person and online. We do a lot of advocacy training. So we train women who haven't had cancer about how to use their life as their legacy. We train women who are in treatment about how to transform that journey of being a victim into a victor and help other people. And then we do training with patients who are metastatic, because they're looking at, it could be 6 months, 5 years, or 10 or 20 years, depending on where they are in their treatment journey and their life journey, to how to use that time they have in a way that's purposeful and meaningful by being a mentor, getting involved in a trial, going back to the communities and training their friends on what I wish I knew. We're launching a major campaign in October around women who are metastatic. We also have a disparities program where we train women from all over the country, from 20 cities that have the highest death rate for Black women. Well, it's been a year-long course, and we partner them with scientists and researchers and advocates, and we teach them about cancer from beginning to end. And then we're working on now the second phase of the program, which will be, we're going to pick certain women that have nonprofits that are smaller, like micro nonprofits, and fund them and mentor them so they grow and can do what I do, but not take them 14 years, but take them 6 months. So we accelerate their growth. I'm forgetting some things. We do podcasts, we do a lot of blogging. We have a huge portal on our site with educational materials. So we do a lot of online teaching and a lot of content building. So whatever you want to know about breast health and breast cancer, you can find on our site. We also do a lobby day. So we train high school students and college students and anyone basically to come to be an advocate. So we have our lobby days, and if you want to be a part of it, we can train women. We fly them in sometimes to the Hill, Capitol Hill, and we do training, and then we go lobby for the cause, for working, whatever issue is pressing in hand. So it's really cool because my whole life is about creating really cool things. And so I get to create things or have things I dream about, and I just reach out and say, can you support this? Can you fund this? Can you partner with us on this? And so I get to imagine all day, and then I get to ask people for support to serve populations that are underserved, like young, women who are younger, women who are maybe metastatic, or women of color that may be not thinking about careers like mine. I never imagined I could be a national leader of a patient-led organization, but I am. Even to me, it sounds like I'm really goofy and silly and like whatever, but I want people who are listening to know these, you guys who are watching and listening, nothing's impossible. You have to really just dream. Even like last year, I go to these big conferences, year before last rather, and I wouldn't see anyone who looked like me in my position. And so I said, okay, you know what? I'm coming every year hearing about health disparities and people of color dying the most, but they're not present and not engaged in clinical trials. So I raised money and brought 20 women of color to the conference the next year. And now that program is being modeled across other areas. So those are a few things that I do within Tigerlily. I think that, over time, we're going to continue to grow. We are launching online television series soon that will be around having honest conversations about cancer and about living with your life with cancer. We partner with many organizations. We're going to be launching an online metastatic breast cancer magazine in the next few weeks. So, our website is www.tigerlily foundation.org. And if you go to the programs page, you can learn more about the programs because there are a ton there and they're growing. The cool thing is that we're patient-led, patient-run, and patient-driven. So everything we're building is things that people need, and they're helping us build those things and helping us to, they're volunteering and helping us to run the organization. And we also have staff. But when you open the site, the first thing you'll see is our inclusion pledge. And we're asking all our friends to take the pledge because there's COVID. But COVID's really exposing us to systemic injustices around health inequities and around racism. And then there is, what happened with George Floyd and his murder. And It's brought to light the conscious and unconscious ways that we can help or hurt people by either by acting or not acting, or by being a bystander that's being quiet. So the pledge really helps people think about being accountable to who they are as human beings, and just not posting about it, but being about it, acting on it in a way that's measurable, and seeing outcomes that can create measurable ways that people, you can say by taking this action, you've eliminated this barrier for this group of people, whether it's Black people or people who have a lack of access to STEM and other technology and resources. And the pledge is growing, and we need all of you to sign the pledge and share with your friends to make it happen and make it sustainable long term.
Thank you, Maimah, for spending time with us and sharing so much about yourself and the outstanding work of the Tigerlily Foundation. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. You can connect with me and the whole Spark 101 team on all the socials by searching Spark 101 STEM, or visit us directly at spark101.org.